back live in the studio here, WLCN, Lincoln Country, 648-5510. With Judy, Busby, and the old guy on Viewpoint. Our guest this morning, Dan Fulscher. Dan, we're sure glad to have you with us this morning. Talk about this emergency management business. We talked about volunteers earlier. What about folks who have who still enjoy? One thing, I'm going to go to my grave never owning a horse. I always wanted to. Those folks who have horses, do you still have a horse posse, so to speak?
There is two. There's one for law enforcement. The sheriff has his sheriff's posse, or the sheriff's department horse team, and then we have a horse search and rescue team. And I know your next thing is how many horses get lost in a year's time, but we actually use the horses to help find people, and actually do that. So we do have a horse team that goes out and will facilitate and help on safety as well.
Is there any one particular incident that is, beside that recent tragedy in the creek? And incidentally, you know, we're all told to stay off the waters when we have high waters and creeks and so forth, and yet those things happen. I remember being young and dumb like that. Now I'm just old and dumb, but I remember, you know, we'd go out on the creek in high waters because that was a fun thing to do.
Right.
Well, it's not a very fun thing. It's a pretty stupid thing to do.
Well, and youth thinks it's immortal always.
And so I just want to comment about that. The folks, the waters out there is a lot smarter and a lot tougher than we are. Age kind of tendencies to ameliorate your desire to go out on the water like that. But a lot of young folks do that.
Great question. Okay, first of all, two parables that may make you laugh. Today, children are bad, so they put them in timeout. Timeout when I was younger was how long I was unconscious when my dad knocked me out from doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay?
Well, that was just to get your attention,
That was to get
so
my
he could talk to you about it. Yeah.
Now you're, but I learned from it.
Yeah.
Back when you and I were younger, there was money that was available to go through and dredge and clean the waterways. Okay, now there is no money out there. When a tree falls in a creek, it lays there and rots. That is the reason why when we lost a young man the last 3 years, I'm tired of taking bodies out of the water. We've had 3 years in a row that we've had people lose their life in accidents in the water. We really feel as though what we've got is we've got spoils, we've got undertow, is trees will clog up and plug our creeks. Water will hit it. Water just won't quit. It will either go around it or it will go underneath it.
Over or under.
And it slowly digs a hole underneath there. Where we found the young man this most recent time was without a doubt is he'd hit a log jam, and this log jam took him straight down, and the water was 14 foot at the surface, but there was a 20-foot boil underneath this log jam to where that he was at for a long time until we was able to get in there and free him.
A boil, Dan?
A boil, it's a great big boil. Just imagine twice the size of this room in a circular fashion, circulating a big whirlwind or whirlpool, just spinning and spinning and spinning. And every gallon of water is 8.33 pounds. So just imagine hundreds and thousands of pounds of water and tons of pressure. There is absolutely no way that once he exited the kayak that it was not going to just take him underneath and succumb him under the water. It was totally impossible. Divers did. We put 2 divers. It took them close to 3 days, and they finally talked the sheriff and I into it. We allowed 2 divers to go down tethered and tied off with our new boat. The new boat tied and anchored to the side, and they actually, as you would say, you've seen where one jet would then put fuel into another aircraft as it was flying, and we would put him down under the water as they went in to do some work in order to make this operation a success.
And that's terribly dangerous because you can't see. There's no question about it. You cannot really see maybe your hand in front of your face. It's all by feel. And I know from experience there's an inexorable pressure of that water pulling on you, and you give up.
That's correct.
You have no alternative.
On a lighter note, you talked about your new boat. Your old boat had to be retired. I think it would be fun for our audience to hear how you came by your old boat and how long you've been using it.
Well, we had our old boat in the early 70s. Two gentlemen that meant a lot to me that I know so well was Charlie Clark and Harold Fulscher. There was an accident on the highway. Well, when they got there, inside the boat, there was a lot of cannabis or marijuana. And at the time, the county then seized that boat. And later on, then that boat was donated to us, and that was our first boat that we had in the 70s. And then we had it then close to 40 years. And the boat...
Well, it didn't owe you much after that.
It didn't know. It hauled, I guess you would say, vegetation of another style.
Yes.
And then hauled our divers, and then it got where it just plain didn't pass the tests, and we needed to. We have anywhere from 3 to 4 calls per year for water rescue. Again, they have then for emergency calls. Last year, what got the most notable attention was when they looked and Lake Shelbyville and Lake Clinton. They found out that there was more emergency calls on the waterways in Logan County than those two sites combined.
Really?
Yes.
How amazing!
Because our
of
water,
the cricks.
The creeks and the current. And the Paddlers Association, don't get me wrong, absolutely paddle, have fun, have a good time, but wear a life jacket or a PFD. Please wear a personal flotation device when you're on the waterways. I know it's bad for your tans, especially when you're a bikini or whatever, but if it can save your life, please, when you're around water, do so. Because, like you were saying, a lot of people are insulated, but every time another body's pulled out, we stand there and we look at it, we go, this could have been prevented.
Yeah.
And that's so awful.
You know, I sit here and I think back the early days. You mentioned Larry Schroyer, and he just was gung-ho on this emergency business for the county and preparedness. And very candidly, some folks said, but he was spot on, and really was almost clairvoyant in that. And for those of you who kind of sat back there and laughed up your sleeves if you're gone, you were wrong, folks. Larry did a great job at getting that thing started, and we owe him a debt of gratitude, because it was his desire to get this thing in. He'd be proud to see the way it is now. Larry, to me, is the Walt Disney. I'm reaping a lot of the harvest and benefits of the foundation of Larry Schroyer. Larry Schroyer, and then Bill Bradley did the radios, and so it's always good, I say, a springboard to get notoriety of doing a good job. But if it was not for Larry Schroyer and for Bill Bradley, there is no way that we'd be at the success that we're at right now. And absolutely, Larry Schroyer, he's the place in heaven. I just would love to be able to sit and talk with him to learn more. You know, again, it's a kind of a quiet operation that you are associated with, Dan, until something happens, and then we're more aware of it. So we all know about the sheriff and the police department, the fire department, and our ambulance, our emergency technicians, and so forth. Yours is more of a quiet operation until the need arises.
It's kind of like a man's job till the wife says get to work. So,
well, there's that to be said. Yeah.
And then it better be ready.
The attitude toward Larry Schroyer's position kind of speaks to our complacency, though. But there was terrorism even then, and there's homegrown terrorism today. And
my wife's a terror when I do.
There you go. There are just any number of Hanyaks out there who'd think it was real fun and funny and macho to do something bad here in Logan County. It isn't all O'Hare. It isn't all JFK. Here in Logan County, there are things that could be done that would foul us up magnificently if someone with a bent toward that, and there are those, even here, decided to do something awful. So you have to have measures in place that can be followed should some Hanyak go haywire.
We, right after 9/11, put together a committee. And of course, we won't talk about them, but we put down the 10 most critical infrastructure things that would impact Logan County. And there's some things that not would only impact Logan County, but would impact Illinois and would impact the country if it was to happen in Logan County. So we know of them and very much well aware of them. And I like it when some people say, oh, your job, that'll never happen, or this won't ever be needed, and that's okay, because
that's your hope, I'm sure.
We hope it don't. But we in Logan County average 10 severe storms a year. We've had as many as 14 tornadoes on the ground. We average 2,800 911 calls per month. We average per month. We average over 300 emergency 911 calls for the paramedics. We average 2,000 calls for, or above that, for Lincoln Fire Department. So we know the averages, and those have climbed 10 to 12 times of what it used to be a quarter of a century ago. And you're right, the Illinois Terrorism Task Force right now, our biggest concern is not when Al-Qaeda or Islam or whatever could maybe hit us again. Our biggest concern right now is the local person, the 10 or 15 man group that has lost their job, that their unemployment is running out, and they're mad at this government entity or this business that cost them their job. Now, make no bone about this. We will be hit again when it comes to terror from another country.
Well, I think that's a given, this question, where and when.
So, just where and when. I mean, look at all the ones in New York, in Chicago, in Utah, in Oregon, and all that has been stopped, or they were fumbling idiots and wasn't able to do so.
Couldn't light their tennis shoes.
Couldn't do it, right. But they're not going to quit till they do. And again, I'm not a politician, and I'll never make one. But I'm just telling you, we're in their backyard in Afghanistan. We are over in their area now, and as soon as we would stop till we finish our job over there, they'll be in our backyard next. So that on the big picture, that's what can and will happen. They will get lucky, and something will happen, and America has got to realize that will happen. But locally, you're spot on, Mrs. Busby. You are spot on that it's the local terror of the local group that, as unemployment grows out, as things, people have a lack of pure love for their country as we once did. Just remember the feeling after 9/11. You had more of a feeling. How many people in World War II, the women went to the factories, the women did the job, there was love for America. If anybody wore a flag on their rear end of their blue jeans back in the 40s, they would certainly be in trouble the way that they did in the 70s, and wouldn't even been thought of after 9/11.
Yeah. Well, the clock on the wall says that we must end this little tete-a-tete session with Dan Fulscher. We appreciate this very much, that you come up and tell us a little about the EMA, Dan.
Thank you.
Judy, thank you for being learned enough to come up with Dan's name here. Judy and I try to plan about a month ahead to try to get various walks of life. Oh, by the way, we will have Larry Bomke once again. Very, very graciously had decided that he would spend some time with us. That'd be on the 19th of this month, a couple of weeks from now. We appreciate his being with us. And let's see, next week, Judith, you're going to make a promotion on that. Chris Miller. Oh, yes. He's the one that tells us about the Weather Service, and he's the one that...
I bet you work with him, too, don't you, Dan?
He's wonderful.
Chris opened up our eyes as to how many tornadoes we do have here. Well, let's see. We always try to end with a quotation, and one that I found out that they were at their wits' end, and it didn't take them long to get there. Thank you for Viewpoint.